A week ago, family physician and YouTuber Dr. Mike went on Jubilee to confront anti-vaxxers, debating them over their beliefs. This led multiple clips to go absolutely viral on the internet, with some people agreeing with the counter-narrative against Dr. Mike, and others completely praising his performance. Mike himself even weighed in on Twitter a couple times, responding to criticisms against him, acknowledging a lot of why some people are generally upset with the healthcare system, especially after COVID. Welcome to the internet versus Dr. Mike and the anti-vaxxers. It starts off when Jubilee tweets out a clip from their video with a caption, "I just had a baby. I was like, no, I'm not gonna get any vaccines. The doctors came in. They made me feel like a very bad mother." Dr. Mike takes on 20 anti-vaxxers in our latest episode of Surrounded and attaches this clip.
Anti-vaccine lies cost lives.
I just had a baby, 7 months old. I was like, no, I'm not getting any vaccines. The doctors came in, they made me feel like a very bad mother for not doing that, right? I was very pressured. And then I had a family friend who had a baby at the same time, gave vaccines to the baby, and the baby had seizures and has had seizures since.
Well, first of all, congratulations on the birth of a 7-month-old. The fact that anyone made you feel bad in the healthcare system, I feel like is a failure on us in the healthcare system, so I'm sorry that happened to you. In healthcare, it's very difficult to predict the future, because there are so many unknowns and there's so many variables in healthcare. There are things that are outside of our control. And we try to do the best with the limited amounts that we can control. So when we see two things happen simultaneously in healthcare, sometimes we think they have caused one another. But unless we see a pattern of that happening over and over again on a large scale, it's more likely that this is just a coincidence of things happening at the same time. For example, I have a friend of mine who's a physician who vaccinates children very regularly. And they were about to give a child a vaccine, and before giving the vaccine, the child had a seizure. They went on and had more seizures throughout their life and ended up actually dying at a very young age because of a seizure disorder. But the vaccine was never given. Had that happened 2 minutes later, what do you think would have been in the mother's mind and in the father's mind in that situation, other than, I definitely think that vaccine caused that problem? It could have just as easily happened before, which it did, and the vaccine wasn't responsible. So it's very difficult when two things happen at the same time to be able to make an exact reason as to if that's what happened to cause it. So what we do is we admit that there's safety issues with vaccines. They're not 100% safe. Nothing in life is 100% safe. Driving or walking here today is not 100% safe. I could have a heart attack right now. Cannot predict it.
Politics Sloth replies, correlation does not equal causation. Failing to understand this concept is at the core of the anti-vax philosophy. Mandating a statistics class in high school will help to create less anti-vaxxers. Laura replies, I like this guy. He actually listens, doesn't interrupt, and doesn't sound condescending in his response. Acknowledges that her issue and what she sees is real. Pretty important set of things to do if you want to actually connect to people. Basic Takes replies, every doctor who pushes vaccines tends to have a certain physiognomy. Jimmy replies to the original clip by saying, I watched this earlier. I felt for Dr. Mike the whole time. I can't imagine there are 20 dumber people on the planet than those who try to argue with the doc. Mystic Fellow replies, this doctor probably passed school with a C-. And No says, and you passed med school with? Keegan quotes Jubilee and says, how do you even fix this? The misinformation of anti-vaxxers thrives on the premise of not trusting experts. It feels like once you start thinking like this, there's no going back. Hassan replies, I saw an article about a lady whose baby died of measles, and she was still encouraging other parents not to get vaccinations. It's terrifying that people think like this. Rust-Built Conservative replies, perhaps it would have been best to think about that when the experts imploded their credibility during COVID. And I'm not even talking about the vax. I mean masking, social distancing, can't buy garden supplies but can buy liquor, can't visit grandma but rioting is okay. Marty Dude replies to the original QRT by saying, I gave up, to be honest. I mean, why waste time? Only people I feel bad for are the kids affected by their dumb parents. Denisha quotes Jubilee and says, the United States is a continuous reminder that if people live too well for too long, they forget what barely surviving looks like. So much privilege and stupidity. So many people in so many places would give anything for our access to vaccines. Also, You are a bad mother if you don't vaccinate your children. Stranger by the Hour replies, so should there be absolutely no skepticism when it comes to vaccines? Zero questions asked? Just do whatever anyone in a lab coat tells you? I don't think that's very responsible. That seems religious as well. Trust the science sounds like dogma. And Denisha replies, I love the specific part of my tweet where I said, there should be absolutely no skepticism when it comes to vaccines. Can you screenshot it for me? And Stranger replies, you're a bad mother if you don't vaccinate your children. Not a lot of nuance there. Dogmatic, religious, all or nothing thinking on display here. Maybe a good mother would want to make absolutely sure she was acting in her child's best interest and at least take some responsibility for what she's allowing corporations to inject into their bloodstream. And wife supremacist replies, you can be skeptical and still get vaccinated, you know. Ava Bishop quote tweets Jubilee and says, Dr. Mike is a better person than me because I fully support anyone and everyone that makes you feel like a bad parent for not vaccinating your kids. And attaches a Dr. House clip, which I will just represent here, and these 4 panels where House says, missing her vaccinations, and the woman replies, we are not vaccinating, and Dr. House replies, you know what is a good business? Teeny tiny baby coffins. You can get them in frog green or fire engine red. 5 times August quote tweets Jubilee and says, I would ask Dr. Mike, what are the stats on babies who have seizures just before getting a vaccine versus babies who have seizures right after getting a vaccine? What are those numbers? Because I can promise you one far surpasses the other pretty substantially. Dr. Mike then quote tweets him by saying, the more valuable questions to ask for a comparison would be, what are the rates of seizures after getting the vaccine versus what are the rates of seizures after getting the vaccine preventable illness? Adam O'Brien replies, but you are not 100% exposed to the illness. If you take the vaccine, you are 100% exposed to the vaccine. And Mike replies, correct. And do you wonder why we aren't exposed to as many vaccine preventable diseases? Jubilee posts another clip with a caption, about 100 million plus lives have been saved by the vaccines.
How can we still villainize people that are anti-vaccine completely due to how much that the government and Big Pharma got this
I'll answer that
wrong?
question with one simple sentence based on something you just said.
Okay.
About 100+ million lives have been saved by vaccines.
From the Lancet, yes.
From the Lancet. And you agree with that stat, approximately?
I agree with the Lancet's findings, yes.
And yet you have anti-vaxxer like RFK Jr. saying statements like there's no such thing as a safe vaccine. That's a villain.
Yeah, so I don't think he's a villain because he thinks that there's
How
no
do you
such
not
thing
think
as
someone's
a
a
safe
villain
vaccine.
when they vaccines you just said saved over 100 million lives, and this person's encouraging people to not take those vaccines?
Yeah, so I think that was a little bit out of context, right? When he's saying people to not take the vaccines, once again, he's giving his opinion off the information that he knows to be true. We can't villainize someone for disagreeing with.
Troy replies, that's out of context. What he meant was every single time. AML replies, how did humans survive throughout history before vaccines? The number one reason so many sicknesses and diseases are out there is due to humans no longer following survival of the fittest. And yes, I know this sounds cruel, but I'm 100,000,000% correct on this. And Drew Salko replies, they didn't. Jubilee also tweets out a third clip with the caption, the farther we get away from nature, the more diseases we will see.
I don't know how you can make this claim and really defend vaccines in the nature and the world that we're living in, where we are actually going away from nature. And the further we get away from nature, the more diseases we will see. So, you know, I'm very passionate about this, and I want to be able to have like a real discussion with you because yes, you're a medical doctor, but this is also a system that J.D. Rockefeller started, getting rid of all types of indigenous practices, and this land is stolen land. So when we're not even honoring the source, when we're not honoring the land, the ancestors, ancestral intelligence, the real AI, when we're not even honoring these things and we're just supposed to trust science, I don't think it's fair for us to take this vaccine when we're already being forced to take polluted food.
When you say take this vaccine, which vaccine are you talking about?
Well, really all of them. It should be a choice because even when I was younger, I didn't take as many vaccines as the children have to take now. These children are sicker, they're going through more metabolic issues, they're having mental health issues, and now I don't think it's just the vaccine. It's the system that's perpetuating this type of lifestyle. Yes, that child who was even in the hospital under those fluorescent lights, I'm not surprised that they had a seizure before because this is an environment that is not conducive to life. This thing that I'm wearing on my chest is called an ankh. Y'all replace this. Y'all replaced our cultures. This life representing thing, you replace it with death culture. This is not a healthcare system. It's a sick care system.
Yeah, absolutely. I respect that. I came to the United States as an immigrant living on welfare. So I got put into this same system that you're describing. It's a shitty system. The world is changing in ways that make our lives more unhealthy. We're eating more processed food. We're exposed to more chemicals, usually as a result of products that we actually enjoy. So when I complimented you on that great jacket, when someone wears a specific pretty strap on their Apple Watch, there's chemicals in there. There's forever chemicals in there. So for every amazing thing that we have in society, there's been drawbacks. The good part about our society is that we're constantly monitoring those drawbacks and are trying to create solutions for our own problems. When I think about our current healthcare system, where I think it needs to do better, is it needs to focus more on prevention rather than cures. Agree or disagree?
1,000%, yes, sir.
Do you know how we can do that?
Not through the vaccines, but one way we could do that is connecting more to nature. One way we could do that is making sure that we're not poisoning the food. One way we could do that is treating each other better with more respect and actually getting rid of these systems that are putting us against us, this divide and conquer, the media manipulation and all of this fear tactics that was pushed during this vaccine COVID mumbo jumbo.
And Gabriel replies, all the doctor had to ask is what killed 90% of the native population in America? For anyone who doesn't know, it was foreign disease that they didn't have antibodies against. Grover1 replies, this guy is a fucking idiot. The Black Plague killed 30 to 60% of Europe's population. They ate 100% organic food, had no fluorescent lights, no vaccines, 100% animal fiber clothing, etc. The idea that we're going backwards is a fabrication, and attaches a life expectancy graph from the 1700s to 2023, showing that it went up from between 30 to 40 years to 60 to 80. Nora quote tweets Jubilee and says, I don't think Dr. Mike was mean enough to these people actually. And Nick Steele replies, the comment section is a cesspool. Would love to see a video of the reverse, where 20 educated doctors take on one anti-vaxxer. Jubilee tweets out another clip with the caption, RFK Jr. is a public health threat.
RFK Jr. is a public health threat.
So why do you think he is a threat?
I think that RFK's stances of why he's a public health threat go past the anti-vaccine stances. He's made public statements that HIV doesn't cause AIDS. That is not someone who clearly understands science, and I don't want them in charge of a health agency.
Okay, assuming he does become head of the health department, wouldn't he now technically be considered the expert, not an expert, but the expert?
No.
If he put something forth that was anti-vax, and he said we have sufficient evidence to prove this, and then other medical experts such as you, which are pro-vax, went against it, wouldn't now you be categorized as the wrong ones?
No, because it's not based on a single person's opinion. This is a consensus-driven statement, driven by thousands of doctors, dozens of agencies, not just here in the United States, but worldwide as well.
I would just say that RFK Jr. does appeal to other experts that even if they're vaccine skeptics, they put forth legitimate studies that would be antithetical to the pro-vaccine studies. So you said earlier, like misinformation. I would ask, who is the author of misinformation?
Who is the author of misinformation?
Yeah, so misinformation, first off, is predicated on the fact that there's right information. Right information is going to be predicated on the fact that there's absolute truth. Does science state absolute truth?
There's no absolute truth, period.
So if there's no absolute truth within this realm, I don't know why we should completely rule out RFK Jr. and the other experts that he could appeal to.
The reason I rule him out is because he takes information that is not true, like that poppers cause AIDS.
Subjectively true.
It's not subjectively true.
For the time being, because you just said it's provisional truth, meaning it can change with time.
Right, but you can create any sort of statement, and in healthcare, we can't just go off of any statement because someone feels subjectively to be true. We have to do our best to do with limited information that we can.
And Alex Jewell replies, slop content like this makes my blood boil. It normalizes giving a shit about what the average unqualified TikTok rabbit hole brain rot thinks, and treats it as an equal opinion to expertise. We are so cooked. American Asylum Seeker replies, dude roasted that pharma-sponsored doctor. Crypto Goof says, I actually generally like Dr. Mike and watch his videos, but healthcare professionals need to realize that after what just happened with COVID a few years ago, many people are not going to just blindly follow/trust them or the government ever again. Black Letters Jr. tweets out this clip with the caption, watching the new Jubilee and this shit fried me. Dr. Mike is a saint. I could not sit at that table, bro.
From 2018 to 2023, if we trust the CDC, their numbers say the most deadly thing for our children, the number one deadly thing, do you happen to know what it is?
Guns.
Accidents.
He follows up his tweet by saying, okay, so apparently Dr. Mike is a raging Zionist, and just so we're clear, I meant that he had the patience of a saint, not that he actually is one. I do not align with his views on the subject of Palestine at all. Free Palestine and the occupation of Gaza, fuck Zionism. Dom Knob replies, when the other guy says since RFK is top of health, wouldn't that mean he's the new leading expert? I clicked out of the video. Min replies to the original clip by saying, how do you even make such a specific mistake? And attaches a image of a study from the New England Journal of Medicine that says, data through 2017 showed that firearm-related injuries were second only to motor vehicle crashes, and since 2016 that gap has narrowed, and in 2020, firearm-related injuries became the leading cause of death in that age group. 28 Sway replies to the original clip by saying, everyone always so worried about vaccines but can't do 10 pull-ups. Vaccines not gonna save your smelly fat asses. Oof replies to the clip by saying, I mean that's probably true, but accidents covers a very wide range of different things. Pretty vague answer. Nick quotes Black Letters Jr. by saying, he low-key broke character with this chick though, and attaches this clip.
Some of the doctors that have worked on vaccines have came out and said they're unsafe and we should not give this to our family and friends. How is it that he's a villain? How are we a villain if some of these vaccine creators and scientists are the ones saying we should not get it?
Is there anything I could say today that would change your mind?
I'm just asking your opinion.
I'm asking you a question.
Probably not, because I actually read and study.
Well, if I can't change your mind,
I just want to know your opinion.
Yeah, so I would like to give you my knowledge, my experience, and what I've seen in the hospital system. But if you're telling me right now, no matter what I say, you're not going to change your mind, is there any value to that?
Well, I like to study everybody's opinion. I don't like to just say, I believe this and not further investigate everybody else's opinion.
Luna replies, why are people in the comment section attacking her? She said she reads and studies. I see no wrong in that. The doctor is a practicing professional, and he shouldn't aim to change her mind. Rather, he should try to educate her better. She said she wanted his perspective, so he should give it. And Nick replies, this makes sense to you? Top Doge replies to the clip by saying, the doctor sucked at debating. He didn't have a good answer in this clip for her question. And Nick replies, this was her second time debating him and was going non-stop at his neck with absolute nonsense, not allowing anything from him in edgewise, which is what led to his reaction in this clip. MF replies, you can hear the stupid in her voice. And Nick replies, my god, and she thinks she is such an intellectual too. Just lost. Satari replies, someone get her a doctorate in neurology. Daniel Barton replies, you can definitely see it and hear it in his voice when he starts feeling frustrated. Context of this clip is Dr. Mike is giving an example of misinformation. It took me 4 hours to watch the full thing. I kept having to take breaks because of stuff like this, and attaches this clip.
Like that vaccines cause autism?
So they don't cause autism, you're saying?
Correct.
At all?
Correct.
Well, that's news to me. Okay, what about death? Doesn't the vaccine save lives?
Correct. It lowers the death rate. It doesn't prevent it 100%.
Okay, so why are people dying?
Because it's not 100%.
But reality is, majority of the people who were dying were vaccinated people.
Correct, because most people were vaccinated.
Dr. Mike then quote tweets Daniel by saying, I don't really get frustrated because the topic is complex, emotional, and scary. With as much fear-mongering out there, I wanted to share what I do and don't know. I hope that came through. Dean replies to Dr. Mike by saying, I don't agree with everything you say, but you did do a wonderful job. I think a lot of this distrust comes from COVID. They lied about the masks in order to hoard them for first responders. They lied about the efficacy of the COVID shot. They lied about gain-of-function research. And Dr. Mike replies, I agree that we did a pretty shitty job with communications during the pandemic. At the same time, it was a friggin' whirlwind of a time with unprecedented situations that needed swift action. So I think having some empathy is fair. That being said, we must learn by being honest about those mistakes and constantly seeking to improve. Drew Comments also tweets out the same clip of this lady that we watched earlier and captions it, on God, I would have fried her. And Rain Arts replies, I want to know your opinion, then cutting him off while he's talking. Neb co-tweets the clip with this gif in the caption, she was getting community noted out at the ass, showing multiple fact checks showing up on the right side of the screen while this woman was talking. And Dr. Mike quote-tweets this clip as well by saying, I really just wanted us to agree on something, even if it meant that we would never agree on anything. Chad replies, literally deflected instead of answering the question. You could have convinced her if your answer was sound. Can you answer her question? And Mike replies, how can I have convinced her if she said she's not ever going to change her mind? Mick replies to Mike by saying, this episode proved that if these people are so stuck in their ways, they don't want to even consider consider they might be wrong. Their talking points are disjointed and they can't formulate an argument. All emotional BS. You handle this like a pro you are. Shout out to Kiko, our first internet representative tier 3 member, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.